Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham Giuseppe Matthews, and today we're breaking down the 2005 WWE No Mercy pay-per-view as seen on the WWE Network. So kicking off the show, a six-person tag team match pitting the Legion of Doom, the second incarnation of the group, featuring Heidenreich and Animal after Hawk had passed away earlier that year, and they wanted to pay tribute to him. Teaming with Christy Hemme to take on Eminem, Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Melina. Very fun match. I mean, I was not as high on the second version of Legion of Doom, of course, as the first one, obviously. I mean, Heidenreich, I was never a fan of. I thought the guy was an awful worker. As a babyface, he had more of a connection to the crowd, the whole poetry thing, and the dancing with the kids in the middle of the ring. That was better than his heel work. I mean, he's a natural heel. He looks like a heel, but he was never a great worker, so at least that was kind of like he was limited as a babyface. Like Khali, he's a natural heel, but at least he's more limited as a babyface. You know what I mean? But whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I thought they were a decent duo. They were over. The people liked them on this show. Maybe it's because it was the first match. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I thought it was fine for what it was. Didn't really care for the Animal and Heidenreich tag team, but they did want to, like I said earlier, wanted to pay tribute to Hawk, and they thought they did that nicely as being... They got a nice little run as WWE Tag Team Champions. The titles were not on the line here, but they won the match with Christy Hemme. She got revenge on Melina, and Hemme was she was a little sloppy in the ring too, but in tagging with Animal and Heidenreich, they pulled together a fine performance. The crowd enjoyed it, so that's really all I can say about it, and that's really all that matters. After that, we had the pay-per-view debut of Bobby Lashley, quickly squashing Simon Dean, who said before the match that if he lost, that he would eat 20 cheeseburgers. And it was funny too, because when he came out, you see this big, this obese guy carrying all these cheeseburgers and commentary. Not JBL. What's JBL? No, it was Taz and Michael Cole. They were making fun of this chef or whoever it was carrying out these cheeseburgers. And little known fact, you probably do know it if you watch the pay-per-view, it was Chris DeJoseph, Big Dick Johnson in WWE. He's a creative writer, or was a creative writer for the company many years ago. So it was obviously a directive from Vince or whoever to make fun of him, which was kind of stupid. But anyway, so yeah, Lashley quickly disposed of Simon Dean, a very impressive specimen Lashley was and still is. He's only improved as a worker in the last 10 years. Unfortunately, they botched the finish. I mean, it came across still cool regardless, but Simon Dean was in the corner, and Lashley picked him up and he slid him over his shoulders. He pulled him out of the corner so hard that Simon Dean slipped right over his shoulders, unfortunately. But he was going to do the Dominator from there. He just picked him up and did it again. I mean, kind of botched, but it was still a very cool spot. Good win for Bobby Lashley. They obviously had big plans for him. It would only be a couple more months. Or not a couple more months, but until he was in the championship match. He won the U.S. title at shortly after WrestleMania, so they had very big plans for Bobby Lashley on the SmackDown brand. And Simon Dean, the whole fitness gimmick like Bull Dempsey has now, it's a nice little undercard thing. He made it work. I couldn't believe when I found out this guy was a part of the BWO from years earlier with Blue Meanie and Stevie Richards. I couldn't believe that as Supernova or whatever his name was, but he reinvented himself, so I got to give him credit for it. But yeah, fun. I mean, it wasn't really, the match was nothing. It was a quick squash, but they would go back to that throughout the night with Bobby Lashley forcing Simon to eat 20 cheeseburgers, which was both funny and gross at the same time. So after that, a fatal four-way match for the United States Championship. Chris Benoit defending against Booker T, Christian, and Orlando Jordan. Orlando Jordan kind of stuck out to me in this match. He didn't really fit in. You had Christian, former multi-time Intercontinental Champion. Same thing with Benoit, same thing with Booker T. These three very established veterans, and then Orlando Jordan, who was not like an up-and-comer. He had his reign as U.S. Champion. Wasn't a very impressive reign. It was a decent reign, and that was it. The guy floundered after that. He got his, he tapped out to Benoit like 3 or 4 times after SummerSlam, or including at SummerSlam, and the guy amounted to nothing. I think he might have been still... I don't know if he was still associated with JBL at this period in time. I feel like he was, and I feel like they already broke it off. But after this pay-per-view, he went on to do nothing. He was on Velocity for a while, and he got cut in 2005. So Jordan felt out of place in this match. But other than that, a very fun match. All 4 of these guys worked very well together. Like I said, Benoit and Jordan had that history. Booker T and Christian were also in the hunt for the U.S. title. Christian, they should have been doing a lot more with on the SmackDown brand, considering at the end of his Raw tenure, he was on fire. People loved him. He faced John Cena for the WWE Championship at Vengeance, and right over, as he went over to SmackDown, wasn't at SummerSlam, wasn't involved in anything notable for months before he started chasing the U.S. title. He could have been feuding with The Undertaker, or maybe not The Undertaker, but you know what I mean, like a Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship, or anyone else, a Rey Mysterio. Give him more something more. I mean, I'm glad he was on the show, but it was one of his final pay-per-view appearances. He made one more appearance after his contract already expired at on Taboo Tuesday that year as one of the choices, and for one of the matches I remember. I forgot exactly what it was, but this was his final SmackDown pay-per-view as he was gone from the company by I think this was his final SmackDown show. I'm pretty sure it was, as he was gone from the company a couple weeks later after his contract expired. But yeah, very fun match. Benoit wins, beats Booker T. But they also tell a great story in defeat too. Sharmel's yelling at Booker T after he loses the match, and afterwards Kennedy calls Booker T a loser. I mean, later on the night after Kennedy wins his match, which I'll get to in a second. And Sharmel says, Benoit's not the problem, Kennedy's not the problem, you're the problem. And that kind of plants the seeds for a Booker T heel turn, and he would have a great best of 7 U.S. title series match for that championship, the U.S. title, with Benoit in the weeks to come, kind of a nod to their best of 7 series in WCW. So I thought that was cool. They had a great series of matches over that belt too. Planted the seeds for the heel turn and a very fun match. So 2 thumbs up all around for the U.S. title stuff on this show. After that, Mr. Kennedy took on Hardcore Holly. A longer match than I would have liked. It was fine for what it was. Good win for Mr. Kennedy, who was fresh on the scene. Wasn't really over. I mean, he had just debuted, but he beat Hardcore Holly. Good win for him with I believe the Kenton, or the Rolling Thunder, or whatever the hell it was called, when he put someone on his shoulders and he did it off the top rope. I'm pretty sure that's what he won with. He didn't start using the mic check until years later. Fine squash match. Went on a little longer than it should have. The people weren't really into Hardcore Holly. He was kind of like just an enhancement guy, so people really had no reason to take him seriously. But a good one for Kennedy, and he would be on the rise from that point forward. After that, JBL taking on Rey Mysterio, much like Eddie and Big Show from a couple years earlier. A great David versus Goliath storytelling with these guys. JBL had just lost the world title matches against Batista, so they wanted to build him back up. So a win here was logical, and obviously the Rey Mysterio world title stuff would not happen. It wasn't planned. I mean, if Eddie didn't die, I highly doubt Rey Mysterio would have won the World Heavyweight Championship. But still, I mean, even if that didn't happen, he was still being pushed prominently on the SmackDown brand. Rey Mysterio was. He was in the U.S. title match 2 years ago, and then in 2005, he's facing JBL. He faced Eddie Guerrero for the entire year, so he went over almost every single match. So after winning every single match against Eddie, he was due a loss, and it came on this show. And it made sense, too. JBL was so much bigger than Ray. He had to win this match, and thankfully he did. But a very good match. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of most of JBL's matches, but with the right opponent, he can have a quality match, and I thought this was one of them. After that, a handicap casket match. 2-on-1 handicap casket match with the Ortons, Bob Orton and Cowboy Bob Orton, and Randy Orton taking on The Undertaker. Now, I thought it was a good match. I've seen some people say that it was kind of boring, they didn't like it, and I can understand that. It was kind of boring for the most part. People that really had no reason to take Bob Orton seriously. It was more of a numbers game than him being a legitimate threat to Undertaker. But maybe I'm just more biased towards it, not just because I love the year of '05, but I loved the Orton-Undertaker feud. I thought it did more to put Orton over as like a single star on the rise than anything else he had done for years. And I'm talking about the stuff with Triple H. I'm talking about everything he did on Raw. This was what really, in my mind, cemented him as a future main event star. He didn't win the feud. Taker won the feud, but he didn't need to win the feud. He looked great in the feud. He got enough wins over Taker to kind of get it a big enough rub from the feud, from feuding with one of the greatest legends of all time. They didn't do anything with it. They went on to put him in a feud against, for the world title at WrestleMania, which he lost very decisively, and then he was suspended. He lost the feud against Hogan the following year in that lackluster match at SummerSlam. So it was years before they started using him right again, but I really thought this feud was a great launching pad for Orton as a main event star in WWE. I enjoyed the match. It might be too boring for some people, but I liked it. Orton went over strong, and it was only the numbers game. It was firmly established that Taker would have won if Orton wasn't so cunning and he hadn't hit him with a steel chair, which put Taker down for the count, closed the casket, the Ortons win again. Then after the match, I mean, you can argue if it was a little unnecessary or not, but they light the casket on fire, and the commentator is basically saying, oh, Taker's dead. And people they were acting all shocked, but the whole crowd was quiet for the next match. It was like after the streak had died, after the streak had ended at WrestleMania 30, they gave the reaction, how they reacted to, the live crowd reacted to the Divas title match at that WrestleMania is how they reacted to the following match, the Cruiserweight title match on this show. But yeah, I love the feud. I thought it was a good match, put the Ortons over strong. The killing Taker thing was so played out, like I talked about in my No Mercy '04 review, when they essentially did the same thing when they killed Taker in the car, or severely damaged him or injured him or whatever. It's so played out. Other than that, though, I thought the match was good. Good progression of the feud. Maybe some people were getting bored of it by this time. I just watched the pay-per-view matches, not the SmackDowns leading up to it. But I thought it was good. Good way of putting over the Ortons and keeping Orton in the driver's seat and writing Taker off of TV for the foreseeable future. The Cruiserweight title match was mostly a nothing match. Juventud beating Nunzio for the Cruiserweight Championship. This was during the time they were doing the whole Mexicools gimmick with the tractors and everything else that was kind of racist, very stereotypical. And then Nunzio with Vito in his corner got beat for the Cruiserweight title. So a fine match. People didn't really care much about it because they just witnessed the death of The Undertaker, but they would come back alive for the main event, however. Speaking of such, in the main event for the World Heavyweight Championship, Batista defending against Eddie Guerrero. So a very well-wrestled match, but again, what I'm a sucker for, what I love most about wrestling is the storytelling, and they hit that perfectly on this match with this angle in this bout with Batista and Eddie after coming off that great feud with Rey Mysterio, saying, "Oh, I'm a changed man. I'm not who I once was. I don't lie and I cheat. I don't steal anymore. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm a new man. I deserve a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship." He accidentally hit Batista with a steel chair, and he teased cheating a few times in this match, but he wouldn't go through with it. He wouldn't hit Batista with a chair. He wouldn't use any means necessary to win the belt. He wanted to play by the rules. So kind of a great conflicting, you could feel the conflict within Eddie when he was going through all this stuff throughout the match, and Batista didn't believe him. He had no reason to trust him after all this stuff happened with Ray. So great storytelling, and people loved him regardless. They didn't really know how to react. Should we cheer for Eddie? Should we boo him because he's about to cheat? Like, what are his real motives? I thought it was great, and then Batista sold well for Eddie's offense throughout. So it felt longer than it actually was, which is, I don't know if it was always a good thing, but I thought it was a very solid match, both in-ring wise, but more so storytelling wise as well from a storytelling standpoint. I thought it was great and a great way to kind of continue the feud between the two. Batista wins, still World Heavyweight Champion, and kind of keeping that question open for the future as to what Eddie's real motives were and what they would do next in the world title picture. Would he turn on Batista now that he lost to him? A lot of questions coming out of the pay-per-view, which is a great cliffhanger for the following show on SmackDown. So on the whole, I thought it was a good show. Enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's a great show. I always enjoy the 2005 pay-per-views because I love that year in wrestling. I wouldn't say this is a must-see show. There's more matches that are more entertaining than others. The 4-way for the U.S. title, very good match. A lot of great storytelling there. The main event, very, very good. The casket match is not for everyone, but I liked it, so I would give this show a thumbs up on the whole. The undercard, the rest of the matches weren't too great. Nothing was all that memorable. They did a good job of building up new stars, though, including Randy Orton, like I mentioned, Bobby Lashley giving him a win, Mr. Kennedy. So at least they were trying, with the new stars and debuting all these fresh faces and giving them wins on this pay-per-view. So not every match was too notable or memorable, but they had all the right results for the most part. New Cruiserweight Champion crowned, 2 great title matches with the U.S. title match and the World Heavyweight title match. Solid casket match, one of the better casket matches that I've enjoyed, that I've seen anyway, in my personal opinion, in my time as a fan. Give the show a thumbs up. Check it out at your leisure. But if there's any one match from this show I would recommend you check out, it would be the main event between Batista and Eddie. I've seen it enough times on Batista's first DVD. I've seen it so many times, but I always enjoy it regardless. So check out that match with the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event whenever you get a chance. So that is No Mercy 2005. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Always appreciate you guys' support. Be sure to check me out on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Matthews. Be sure to give the page an old thumbs up. And also check out the website at nextairawrestling.net for full reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, Superstars, Ring of Honor, NXT, Impact Wrestling, and everything else in between. So, of course, my next video will be covering No Mercy 2006. But until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.